Hi everyone, it's Tatiana the Slow Crafter. Today I have a video showing you how you can use a hack that I came up with to fancy up your punches. Now the way I came up with this was that I was admiring the stitched border that my die creates on this piece of paper, and I was thinking about how nice it would be if my punches had the same stitched border on them, but I couldn't figure out at first how I would do that. But then I came up with this idea that involves the Take Your Pick tool, and I'm going to be using the pointy end of the tool. And I'm using the thin foam pad that comes with the Stamparatus machine. But I think that any piece of dense foam that you have would probably work. Now, I only have 3 punches at the moment until my collection grows, but I'm going to demonstrate this technique with all 3 of them, and I think that you could probably assimilate it into any punches that you do own. Now, the first one is the Starburst. This is called the Starburst Punch from Stampin' Up, and it already comes with a pretty border, but I was thinking let's just step this up a little bit. Now you're gonna have to forgive me, I have to get really close, and normally when I'm doing this, my head is directly, and I mean directly, over the punch, but I can't do that because my head would be in the camera. So if this turns out a little bit wonky, I apologize, but I will show you a card that I created doing this, and I promise you that if you are closer to your die cut and you focus on what you're doing, it will look nice. I'm hoping this will look nice too, but I'm just not promising anything because I can't get too close to the die cut here. So I wanted to create a stitched border, not a stitched border, a dotted border, excuse me. I wanted to create a dotted border because I couldn't figure out how to make a stitched border. Maybe we can figure that out together later, but to begin with, I thought I'll just try to create a dotted border, and I want it obviously to be even all the way around. So I thought, why don't I just start my dots at the indent of the starburst. So where it makes a V, I'm going to make a dot, and I'm going to do it just slightly in, and I'm going to eyeball it. And you're going to have, this is the hardest part. The hardest part is keeping the distance between the edge of the die cut and where you're punching or poking consistent all the way around, because that's what's going to make it look wonky. We have the V's as a template for where we're going to poke, so that's not what's going to make it look wonky. What's going to make it look wonky, if it does, is the distance between here and where you poke. So that's what you're going to have to keep your eye on, and I'm going to try really hard. Let's see, okay, I'm going to start right about there. Now, as you can see, I don't know how much that is in inches, but it looks to me about 2 millimeters. And I'm poking, as you can see, right in the V of the starburst. And then I'm going to do it again. And another thing about this is you want to poke directly down because that will create a smaller hole. If you poke, I was poking like in from the side without thinking about it when I was doing this the first time, and it was just creating different sized holes. So you want to poke straight down, and you don't want to, if you poke too quickly, sometimes you lose control of the tool and the hole becomes a little bit larger than you might want it to. So I'm just going to continue doing this all the way around the die. And another thing is you want to take your time. Now I'm on video, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker, and I'm going to try my darndest to make this look as good as I know it can look. But this is the type of thing that you might want to do while you're talking on the phone to somebody and you have spare time with your hands. You could put your phone on speakerphone like I do sometimes when my mom calls, and then I just do other things. And actually I did a whole bunch of these while doing exactly that. I was just talking on the phone and I was kind of punching. And you know what, this is weirdly satisfying in a way. I don't know what it is, it feels good. It feels good to punch through this paper. When you make that little hole, it just kind of, I don't know, it's satisfying. I can't really explain it. And I'm almost done here. We'll see how this looks. I'm feeling good about it. Okay, there is the finished piece. Now, as you can see, it looks really even, and it's because you have a guideline in this case with the Starburst. And so it almost looks as though you've used a circle die on there. Okay, let's move on to, this one is called the tailored tag die. Now, the tailored tag die is a little bit different. I'll just cut out a piece for us to use. Now, the reason the tailored tag die is different is because it doesn't have such obvious guidelines as the Starburst does, but it does have guidelines. So in this case, I'm going to get back down close here. In this case, the guidelines that I used were the points, obviously. So once again, I'm going to poke at the points, an even distance, hopefully, from each point. Okay, there it is. So that's how you start. And then I was thinking, without using a ruler and getting my pencil out, how am I going to make this even? And so the obvious answer is that you're going to poke a hole about, you're going to just eyeball it, but I think most of us are capable of doing this. You're going to eyeball about where the halfway mark is, and then you're just going to poke a hole there. Once again, being mindful of staying equidistant from the border of the punch. Now, I didn't do a great job of staying the right distance, but once again, I'm not close to the paper. So then after we do that, we do it again. We go halfway between that hole and the hole that's at the corner, and we poke a hole there. And then it depends how close you want your poke holes to be. So I think for this one, what I did was I went and put 2 dots in there. I hope you can see this. So put 2 dots in between there. So once again, we're going to go halfway, and then we're going to put 2 dots. And the way you determine this is just by kind of looking at it and thinking. It's also with experimentation. You're going to have to practice this. I did quite a bit of practicing, and as you can see, it's not perfectly straight. But trust me, that's okay. I'm going to show you a card I made later with these die cuts, and when you have a bunch of them together, you don't really notice it. So now for this one, I'm thinking that if I put a hole right in the middle, it might be too much to, let me see here. Okay, maybe I'll do that. I'll put a hole right in the middle and then one on either side. And then we'll try again. I'll just keep showing you. Right in the middle, right in the middle, right in the middle. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. There you go. Now, as I said before, this is something that you might want to do while you're on the telephone, or you have a whole bunch of them in front of the TV or something. If you sat down to make a card and you had to make 20 of these for the front of the card, but listen, you might only use one, but the card I'm going to show you, I used probably 10 or more of these on a card. So I sat down, like I said, on the telephone, and I just did it while I was talking to my mom. Okay, so now let's bring on the most challenging one. We have the balloon bouquet here. And I'm going to use gold cardstock just so that you can see the effect easily. I love punches, don't you? There's something so satisfying about punching a punch. Now, on a circular shape like this, it's even more challenging because there aren't really any marker points. But on any circle, you can divide a circle in half and then in half again. This isn't a circle, obviously, but I'm going to use the same theory. And so I put a hole right at the top. I put a hole right at the bottom. I put a hole at 3 o'clock, and I put a hole at 9 o'clock. And then I just used the same principle as I did with the tailored tag punch. And in this case, it's even more important that you keep in mind the distance between where you're punching and the side of the punch, because it's circular and it's a little trickier. But once again, I'm going to punch halfway in between. And then I'll stick to here. So I'm going to punch halfway in between, halfway in between, halfway in between, and then I'm going to punch halfway in between again, halfway in between again, halfway in between again, halfway in between again. And so you can see that that does a pretty good job. And then the bottom of the balloon is a little trickier because it's not the same distance. So let's try halfway, halfway, halfway. Now, if I just put one poke in between here, I think it might look a little bit too spaced out. So I'm going to put 2 pokes. So this is something that you just have to kind of eyeball and figure out for yourself. There you go. And it's not perfect. Like I said, look, they're a little bit closer together here. They're a little bit more spaced out. But watch when I finish how you don't really notice those tiny inconsistencies. So let me just quickly finish this up and I'll show you the card that I made. Halfway, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, we won't do the little balloon because it's basically the same thing. I think I could have done better on this, but honestly, I'm telling you, it's because I'm not right over it. You have to really focus, and I'm about 1.5 feet away from the die when I'm punching it. I know that yours will look better than this, but there's an example of how it's going to look. Now I'll show you the card that I made, where I sort of went over the top with these, and I made the entire card out of these types of punches. So here is the tailored tag punch, and I've just repeated it over and over and over again. And if you look closely, let's look really closely. I want you to see there are inconsistencies. They're not perfect. You see here, these aren't perfect. That's not perfect. But when you look at this card as a whole, do you really notice that? Or do you just notice the fanciness of the punch? And I've done the same thing. This is the Starburst Punch. And I have used, in case you're curious, I've used the Crafting Forever stamp set. It's got the little pair of scissors, and it's got the We Are Cut Out to Be Friends. And these little stars are from Stampin' Up, but honestly, I can't remember what the name of them are. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, that's today's card, and let me know if you try this and if you like it. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.